Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 6 of the Those Who Hope podcast. I'm very excited because today I am joined by my wonderful friend. This is Emily Carter.
Hi guys.
So Emily, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. Really appreciate it. And like when I said to Joyce and everyone that's been on the pod so far, all my guests so far have made me as the host feel so comfortable because we had a couple of technical hiccups not really hiccups, but just a bit of a slow start with trying to get the technology working, and you're a very calming presence. So thank you very much for that.
Good to know.
Well, as we said just now, we're very good friends and we have known each other for quite some time, haven't we? In fact, I think out of everybody on the podcast so far, you're the longest reigning friend.
Oh, yes.
So how old was I from what you remember when we met?
I think you must have been 12 or 13.
I think I was actually younger.
Were you?
Maybe. I started, so we met at church.
Yeah.
And I joined that church, I think when I was 8 or 9.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my days.
Yeah, because you taught me you were my kids worker.
That makes you feel very old.
Well, but you're not.
No, young at heart.
Yeah. Well, we've got a cool relationship because obviously we are friends. But as I said, you, first of all, were my kids worker because you're also friends with my mum. But me and my mum often, I'll argue with her and say, no, they're my friend. She's like, no, they're my friend. But so we met at church and tell us a bit more about that. So because we've been going to church together, I guess, since then, pretty much. We've pretty much followed each other around.
I know. I can't really do the maths. So where are you now? How long ago is that?
23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 17.
I'm overworded this bit. Another blooper. How old are you now?
8.
You're not going to say it?
No, 24. So 24. It's 24 take away 8.
So it's like 16?
Wow.
16 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's long.
Gosh, yeah. And it blows my mind too, because your kids, obviously I've known since they were babies.
Yeah.
And now they're so grown up. And well, we'll talk about them in a minute, but Ted is your oldest. And
He's 14, my eldest. Yeah.
And I was 14 when you started kind of mentoring me and we did a Bible study together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't believe that's Ted's age now.
It's
yeah.
gone so quick.
Yeah. So so we went to the same church. Well, you were already there. And then I joined when I was about 8 with my mum and my brother. And then we went to another church called Grace. And I kind of followed you there after you were there first.
Yeah, all right.
And so now we're at Pulse. But before we talk about all of that, tell us a bit more about yourself. And maybe we've spoke a bit about your family as well. So maybe tell us who they are as well.
Yeah, so I'm married to Anthony. We've been married for over 20 years now. And we have 2 children, Ted, who's 14, and Ben, who is 10. Who also seems like he's about 14 as well, to be honest. And we have a puppy. Well, he's not a puppy, but he'll always be my puppy, called Max, who is 3.
Oh,
that's our family unit at the moment.
And Max is a cockapoo, right?
Yes, Max is a cockapoo.
And I've got a cockapoo as well called Cindy.
So I copied Katrina, basically.
Well, I remember when it was during lockdown and I think we'd done a church service and then video called after the church service. Yeah, and then I think the boys maybe said to me first, they were like, oh, we've got a new puppy. And obviously, all the time I've known you, I've never known you to have a pet. And I was like, no, you haven't. I thought they were lying or something. I was like, what? That's so random. You've just suddenly got a puppy.
It was random.
Yeah. And then you were like, yeah, we have. So,
little Max.
Oh, and he's like a blondie, goldeny colour as well, isn't he? Which is the same as Cindy. But Max is a lot bigger.
He is.
And I remember...
And a lot lighter. His fur is a lot lighter now.
Yes,
he's paled. Yeah, he's faded.
And I remember you saying, I don't think Max will ever get as big as Cindy.
I know, I know, because he was so tiny.
Yeah. And also, just going back to how it blows my mind how Ted's 14 now. I literally remember we were at a home group here at my house and when you got your baby scan out. And I remember you'd just been to see Britney Spears in concert. So everyone thought you were going to get a picture out of Britney Spears and it was Ted.
It was. Yeah. It was my first scan picture that I showed you all that night.
Yeah.
And everyone went on to tell me their birth stories and how horrendous it is. And I was like, shut up.
I know. Yeah.
It's funny. I've done it. It's all right.
Yeah, you can talk about it now. So going back to us being at Pulse, so we kind of ended up, we were both at Grace, and then we merged with another church called Haven Christian Fellowship, which was a really exciting time. And that was kind of just before the pandemic. Was that 2019? Or maybe end of 2018.
Maybe once you were there. Yeah, it was that late.
And so that's been a cool adventure in the last several years with that merge, and also with a new church plant that's happening, and all different things going on. And just tell us where you kind of fit into that. What's going on for you at the moment?
So the name Pulse, just want to go back to that as well. So there is a tagline that comes with that. The tagline is the heartbeat of God for our community. So we want to be sharing God's heart for the people around us, and we also want to be quite current and just doing that. So I think it's important to kind of bring out the tagline as well. So I've been part of the leadership team there for about 5 years, kind of since the merger really, as a voluntary role, and getting involved with lots of pastoral care and the prayer life of the church, things like that, the prophetic life of church, involved in those kind of things. And then September time, there's obviously build up to it and lots of chats, but by September last year, the trustees offered me employment for that role, basically, that I'd been doing voluntary, and employed me as the congregational leader for Pulse at the Hornchurch site. It coincided with the time where one of the other leaders was going over to lead an expression of church in Romford, so we kind of needed someone back at base to lead the congregation there. So I've been very, very blessed to be employed by the church, and working there a couple of days a week, and basically continuing and uplifting what I'm doing there with pastoral care, preaching, Sundays, networking with other churches, loads of cool stuff.
That's so amazing. And is this, because you've been involved in church leadership for years, but is this the first time that you've been employed by a church?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And what does the rest of your week look like? So you said that you work for the church 2 days a week, and I'm sure that sometimes it probably feels like a full-time job anyway, but you do lots of other things too, don't you?
So I work in retail as well. Work for Boots in Lakeside, which is a big shopping mall near where we are in Essex. So I work on the number 7 counter, their skincare and makeup counter there, 3 days a week. I've really, really enjoyed having both a secular job and a church job, and actually finding the lines aren't quite as harsh as you think. Having a secular job and a church job, actually, those things have merged. I've had wonderful opportunities to speak to people there. I do laugh at myself because I think I was just going there, to earn a bit more money, to help out because the mortgage was going up, and I thought it was all about me. And then you get there and you have all these amazing conversations with people about Jesus, and you're like, as if it was just about earning money. It's obviously kingdom. I think we can get a bit blinkered sometimes. So it's just great how God's used me. And I think I also didn't realise that I was going to be able to get opportunities. I was expecting the corporate world to be a bit stricter about talking about faith and things, but people have been so open to talk to me. And I've just had some great conversations with people of no faith, some faith in God, other faiths. So it's been wonderful getting to pray for people in the staff room and all sorts. So it's cool.
That's amazing, and that's such an encouragement, because I think sometimes people can see more of a separation than what there is, as you say, or that you've got more opportunity to make an impact if you're working for a church or something, but actually God calls us to be in all different places. And that's what encouraged me to go into the performing arts world, because I felt like God had called me there. And what you was just saying about Boots reminded me of, over the summer I worked for 3 months at a holiday park, and it wasn't what I had planned to do in that space of time, But when I was praying about it, I felt that God was leading me there. And once I was there, even though it was actually a very intense job, I was just like, more than anything, I loved the job, but more than anything, I feel like God's got me here. And the conversations that naturally came up and things like that, it was just amazing. And it's just such an encouragement how God partners with us, and it's exciting that he wants to use us. It's not just about us, it's about other people, but that's such a blessing to us as well. So I'm so thankful for that. And talking about your jobs and stuff, well, there's one more as well, wasn't there?
So I also do Avon as well. So that was a bit of a... I wrote some stuff on my social media because I've just got back from an Avon conference, which was really powerful, really engaging. Met Sarah Davis, which was really cool, from Dragon's Den. And I just was reflecting this morning about that part of my journey. And 2016 had a really, really horrible breakdown, really, really nasty time in my life, and thought I would never work again at that point. Just thought I needed to get through each day until I died. That was where I was at. So long story short, I took on a role with Avon as a representative, selling stuff from the brochures door to door. Actually, it was only because I was ordering from Avon. A couple of my friends were ordering from Avon, and I thought I could get the commission from those friends, so I opened my own account. It was very low key.
Right.
But actually, the more I got involved with the company and how they champion women and what they do for us was phenomenal. And it was an opportunity to build my confidence again back in the working world, but with very little pressure. It was on my own terms. Yeah. But I soon flew with that. Established a great customer base. I've established a team of representatives that I work with. I've made new friends, and so it will always hold quite a dear place in my heart that it was what got me back out there. So that will always be my little side hustle.
Oh, that is amazing. And you've been doing that for years now, and so diligently as well. And
Thanks.
Honestly, like you're a boss lady.
Thank you. Oh wow, that's an accolade.
You are. Yeah. And also, before we, there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but I did say we've got to do a bit of a name drop, or like a plug, or whatever we were going to call it, because people who have watched the series so far may notice that there's a bit of a difference here that we haven't said anything about. Well, we have a little bit so far, well, maybe I said about a performing job, but not about you personally. And the heart behind this podcast isn't and never was just to be interviewing Christians who are performers as well. It was always, I want to have people from all different walks of life, and I think there's so much to learn from everyone. So I've been really excited to have you on as a guest, and as I said, you've been on my list for a very long time. I've got my secret list of people that I want on the pod. And however, I thought we'll transition everybody to a non-performer, and in the performing world, if we do a job that's not performing, we say it's a muggle job.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard that? Yeah. So we have a muggle in the house.
What muggles are.
I'm joking. No, totes jokes. Okay. But anyway.
But I'm not.
You're not.
But I'm not.
You're not. And that is the thing. So tell us about that. You have a West End credit to your name, Emily Carter.
I do. From a very, very long time ago. Long before Katrina was born, or a twinkle in her father's eye. Many, many years ago, when I was 13, I was in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
I just wanted to start singing straight away then. It's probably copyrighted,
yeah,
maybe.
Probably, yeah. There are some good tracks though.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, I performed in Joseph in the children's choir.
Was that the Palladium?
It was at the Palladium. Yeah, it was at the Palladium. Beautiful theatre.
Wow.
And I was there for 3 months, performing 4 times a week, travelling up from Brighton, where I was living at the time. We travelled up by coach every night after school, and it was best time of my life. Loved it.
I bet that was just so 4 times a week.
So we travelled 3 times, but 1 day a week we did a matinee and an evening.
Right, yeah. That's like a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be travelling back and forth but on the coach. I mean, coach journeys are so fun when you're that age. Yeah, so fun. And then you're going to literally sing in a West End show. Yeah. So who was...
Philip Schofield was our Joseph.
Wow. And I remember you saying about somebody who used to do your hair.
Oh, yeah. We're doing all the name drops.
Let's do the name drops.
The name drops. Okay, so I had a wonderful chaperone and called Kathy. And sometimes her daughter would come round in the afternoons, evenings, and do my hair, brush my hair, play, put it up in the bunches or whatever I was choosing for that performance. Her name was Denise, and loved her. She used to come round after school. And then a couple of years later, saw her on the telly, and it was no other than Denise Van Outen.
Wow.
So her mum was my chaperone who looked after me backstage. And Denise used to come in and do my hair and stuff. Yeah. So that was really cool.
Oh, that is so cool. I love that. That is literally so cool. And do your boys find that cool? Or do you think they don't quite get like...
Nah.
No, because Ben, who is... How old is he?
10.
10. Ben 10.
Ben 10, he is now.
Does anyone remember that cartoon? So he does musical theatre, doesn't he? Which he very proudly told me one day when I think I was still at college.
I know, I love
so
this story.
Cute. So I think he said to me, "What do you do at school? What do you do at college?" And I said, "Oh, I do musical theatre." And he went, "I do musical theatre."
In a little club after school.
Yeah, he does a club, but he still must have been a good few years ago.
Yeah,
he still does it. Yeah, and
it.
He's what was the show they did? A
High School Musical. They've just done.
Yeah.
They did Polar Express before that, and they're just rehearsing Matilda at the moment.
Oh, that is like music to my ears.
Nigel, it's all cool.
That is so cool. Mm-hmm. So there we go. We've kind of got a bit more of an understanding of, not a muggle. Exactly. You're welcome. No, all muggles are welcome here. Well, I suppose now we've got a bit of a background to all the many strings to your bow. And I think we will talk a bit later as well about juggling all of those things, all the things you do, because I think in this day and age, a lot of us have so many things to do, and we also know as Christians that we're called to rest and things like that. So we'll speak about that a bit later, because I find myself that is a hard balance to get. And I think that's a good conversation to have. But I know there's something very dear to your heart that I think you're in a really great position in your jobs with Avon and Boots, and also in church, to do something that you felt called to for a very long time, and something that you felt God spoke over you. So I'd love if we could speak about that, and we'll probably speak about a prophetic word that you had. And to anyone that's not familiar with that term, or in fact, I'd love to hear, I'm putting you on the spot here, but how would you explain that to somebody who's not as familiar with that term?
So we believe that God speaks. He spoke in the Bible, and he spoke to his people, and he still speaks today. That wasn't just for Bible times. God still speaks today. God can speak in a variety of ways, and he speaks in a variety of ways to a variety of people. Sometimes, so the main way that I feel I hear from him these days is that still small voice. I'll hear something and be able to put that into practice. Also, other people will sometimes have words for me, and they will tell me. It's really important when that happens that you weigh those words. So it's a bit that you kind of ask God about it. You check in with Scripture, make sure it's biblical. Ask God to reveal a bit more, because we are people and we can get things wrong. So it's really important how we receive words from other people. You can have dreams, you can see kind of like pictures in your mind, or something in nature can spur you to think about how God is speaking. Sometimes I feel a pain in my body, and I know it's not a pain for me, and I speak that out generally in church, sometimes in other situations. And quite often someone else has that pain, and I'm able to pray for them. God brings his healing, reveals himself through healing, and then quite often by the kind of end of the day, that pain has gone. So I've kind of had that feet, knees, all sorts, headaches, shoulders. So quite often God speaks to me in that way. But I'm sure, there's loads of ways God speaks, but that's kind of a synopsis.
Yeah, amazing. And so you had, and I don't know if this was a word given to you by someone else, so I'd love to hear the story behind this. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. So it's interesting, actually. I might go just a couple of steps back.
Absolutely.
So 16, doing my A-levels, and didn't do very well at my A-levels. Didn't go to many lessons, didn't, kind of enjoyed that freedom a bit too much, and got to 18. I remember the summer when I turned 18, and I did not know what to do. I didn't get good enough grades to go into uni. So it was a bit of a standstill. Didn't really know what to do and how to deal with that. And we were out in a huge family gathering, which included my sister's husband's family. And my sister's father-in-law came over and spoke to me and said that he had a word for me. So he'd heard from God for me. And it was a very simple word, and it was mother of many. He said, you're going to be a mother of many. And in that moment, I knew whatever was going to happen, I was going to show the mother heart of God. And going back even further into my past, as a 6-year-old, I'd lost my mother. My birth mother passed away from breast cancer in the mid-80s when, there wasn't all the kind of stuff there is now to help medically. So, yeah, unfortunately, she passed away from cancer when I was a young child. And I think even at that point, God instilled in me this heart to be a mother, even though I didn't have a mother. Like, he turns things to the good. Like, you'd think maybe, like, why would you pick that person to do that when she hasn't had a mother? Disclaimer, I have had a wonderful stepmother who adopted me and took me into her family when she married my dad. And so that's my disclaimer. God did provide a mother for me. But at that young age, why pick someone? And this is what God does all through the Bible. He picks people who are the least likely subjects. So I can't, off the top of my head, there's a guy called Gideon who was so shy, literally hiding when a prophet came to find him to talk to him, hiding in a wine press. But that was who God wanted to use mightily to lead his army. So God's wisdom is not earthly wisdom.
And there's so many examples of that. Even you preached on David on Sunday. And,
he picks the ones that the world wouldn't pick. So, yeah, really, really honoured that God chose me to be a mother of many, even though I'd experienced that loss. So, yeah. So anyway, education-wise, that all got sorted, and I went on and did some other courses, did a degree, became a teacher, but always had that mother heart to mother many. I don't think it meant I was going to have hundreds of biological children. 2 boys is absolutely enough. But yeah, I've just been able to mother people. I think sometimes I do worry that it can sound a bit claustrophobic and a bit overpowering, she's mothering me. But it's slightly different. It's from God, and it's mothering people pastorally, looking after them, and just being that side of God to them. We often hear about God the Father, and that there are parts of the Bible, and it came out on Sunday at church, that there's verses about how God wants to gather us like a hen gathers her chicken under her wing. So God does have different aspects of his character, and we are made in his image. Men and women are made in the image of God. I do believe God is Father. I do believe God is male. Get all those disclaimers out. But we are made in his image, not just the men, the women are made in his image too. So we have got something to bring. So all sorts of places I've been able to be a mother to many. That word slightly changed as well to someone else had a prophecy over me, mother of mothers. And I do quite a lot of that in my church world, helping young mums. But it's so hard to get it all across, isn't it, in one podcast? But it's not like a heavy thing. It's not a control thing. It's literally just chats with other mums. And I had a dream that I would teach mums how to cook for their kids, and I was like, that's really weird. And then it happens, but you're just in conversation with people, go, what did you feed your I used to do this, and I used to put avocado in it, and sometimes banana, and it's just a chat, but it is mothering mothers. And God just uses it in so many different parts of my life still. Don't know if you felt that as a young teenager.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about that. So I feel like we've always been close, and we've always had, a lovely relationship. But I think it really reached that kind of deeper level, I guess, when I was about 14. And actually, I don't know how you remember it, but what I remember of this is I've spoken a bit about this on other podcasts, and I think the more I do podcasts, the more people get to know a bit about my journey, and I'll probably talk about it more in another one as well. But basically, I have OCD, which I didn't realize until I was about 16. But when I look back, I think I was definitely in the thick of it even when I was 12 years old. And at that point, it was a very isolated time where I didn't really tell many people what I was struggling with. I knew that I was definitely depressed, that I had depression. Again, as I said, I had no idea about the OCD stuff, but it's clear to see in retrospect. But I'd kind of gone through, I was in year 8 at the time. And when I look back to that time, that's one of the hardest times to look back on, I think, because it was so isolated too, that I hadn't told many people. And then it goes, and then I kind of see like different eras from when I was at school, like different chapters in my life. Year 9 was a completely different year for me, because through a whole other testimony of a breakthrough in church, actually, for a prophetic word as well that somebody had for me, really spoke into my situation, and I felt so much set free from what I'd been through. And once I was in year 9, I was like more myself again, because who I was had been completely kind of changed by what I was going through, and I felt so much more free, so much more myself. And that's also the time when God started leading me into performing. It's when I started singing, and it's when I ended up doing shows and things like that. But so that was a wonderful time. But I also just remember getting to this point, and I don't know if it was as I was coming to the end of a school musical I was doing. So that was kind of the utopia of the year, doing that. And I don't know if it was kind of getting nervous about that ending. But basically, I had scars from everything that had happened the year before, and that I hadn't really dealt with, and hadn't really felt heard or seen about either, because I had kept it very much to myself mainly. And I remember, I think we'd gone on, I was helping out with the kids, because I've always loved kids, and I've always loved being involved with your kids and other people's children at church. And we took the children to a like church trip to the cinema. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I remember just being with you and just feeling so comfortable with you, and so, loved. You're so good at loving people, and just, I don't know, something just stirred in me then that I was like, I kind of want to tell Emily about what's happened. And, when I look back, I'm like, oh gosh, I was so young as well. But and I think I messaged you that evening. And I think because at the time I thought my mental health's fine now and like everything's fine, but I just think I just needed some healing still. And I remember messaging you, and I can't even remember what I'd said, but, some sort of need for a bit of support or whatever. And you ended up offering to do kind of like a Bible study with me every week. So I used to come to you, and I don't know how long that was for, but I'd come to your home every week. And I think that carried on into the next era, was kind of year 10 was when I had another bout of depression. And then from that point is when I started to kind of really understand a bit more what was going on and started to get help and stuff. But I suppose you're the first person that I'd reached out for any kind of official support. And it wasn't counselling, but it was connecting me to God, who is the mighty counsellor, and just being seen and heard, and just being able to share all of that so openly with you. And so you really were, from even that point, that's like over 10 years ago now, but you was fulfilling that role of mother of many. And it's just so special. And I've seen you be that to so many people, which is just such a blessing. And how amazing that God spoke that over you from such a young age as well,
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's funny to even look back on that time, because it's like so long ago now, but just remembering it coming round, and always tea and biscuits, and the boys would have been so young then too. So for you giving your time to do that, it's just such a blessing. Yeah, so thank you so much.
That's okay. There are to laugh or cry. Oh, it's just so special
it's
to
so
remembering
special.
that time, that little girl that used to come round and thinking that I could build you up just a little bit, and to see you now, oh my gosh, like flourishing, all that you do. It was a real privilege and an honour to be part of those. A big part of those years, those younger years.
Thank you so much. There really aren't words enough to thank you.
Okay.
And also, another thing that we haven't mentioned is you have a ministry of hugs as well, don't you? Yes, which is
a good hug.
Yeah, that all comes into it too. But honestly, like, if you ever get to meet Emily, just ask her for a hug. There's just something that hits different about her hugs. They're so healing. Yeah, which is so amazing. And
Thanks.
yeah, and let's talk a bit about what you said about being a mother to mothers as well, because I think motherhood is such an important thing to talk about. And as women, as mothers, you know, all genders and everything, but we're speaking about mothers at the moment. Everyone as humans, we all need support, and we're called by God to be that to each other, to support each other, aren't we? And I've been reading Ephesians recently, and it says about bearing one another in love, you know, and we follow God's example. How God loves us is how we go out and love others. Yeah. And I just think it's so important to have that support around you, and especially when you're pouring out too as a mother and you've got your children or your child to look after. That's, you know, so much of what you do is never for yourself, you know, it's always outwards, it's always for other people, and for someone to be able to pour into you is so important. And so I guess my question is, have you found that you've had that sort of support through being a mother? And also, how do you find that you're able to do that for other people? I know you've spoken a little bit about that, but yeah, if there's anything else you wanted to add there.
Yeah, I would definitely say having women that are a little bit further on in the motherhood journey. If you are a young mum, find someone that's a little bit further ahead than you. So Katrina's mum and another great friend from church have been my kind of mentors in that, and people that I've been able to speak to, and they're like, yeah, that's fine, that's normal. I mean, if it's just practical stuff as well as spiritual, but yeah, just learning how to mother by having other mothers as mentors is just amazing, and just see how other people do it. And but I think so much of it is just when someone says, yeah, my kids do that, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of my mothering of mothers has been, you know, people saying he doesn't sleep, he gets up at this time, he's not out of nappies yet, and for someone to say, yeah, that's all right. And the weight that you can lift off someone by just being really normal with people and really real with people, and just like, yeah, that's me too, like that's okay. And also giving strategies to help in those situations with food or sleep, or, you know, I'm not some mother guru, but just just everyday support, really, just from my own experiences, has been really good to be able to mother other mothers as well. I guess as I've gone through those early baby years and toddler years with my kids, I've got kind of, you know, somewhere to come from to help people in their toddler years with their kids. So Absolutely. It's been cool.
And I think the thing that sticks out to me there, it's just about people being together rather than alone as well, isn't it? And that's the same for any situation. And it's like what I said about how the reason why that time in year 8 when I was 12, 13 was the hardest was because I was so much more alone than even, you know, when I went through things in the future and I actually spoke out and I had support around me, whether that be church and friend support or professional support, a combination of both. That just lightened the load so much, made it so much more bearable, I guess, because I wasn't alone in it. I think it's the same to encourage parents and mothers to carers to, you know, to reach out for just that support. And I suppose it is like that classic, it takes a village to raise a child, and we're not meant to do things alone, you know, we're meant to do things in God's strength and also with the things that he provides for us to be able to do that. So I think it's just, and I think sometimes people can find it really hard to do that because so many people, I think, feel like they're going to be a burden or that they should be able to do it themselves and all of these things. But I think, so, you know, 9 times out of 10 or more than 9 times out of 10, nobody is ever going to think, oh, this is too much or whatever. You just, you know, you need to just be brave and ask somebody, somebody that you trust. And I always think too, that because to protect, you know, as an encouragement to people that say, oh, I don't want to be too much to people. In my eyes, I think I've kind of learned, because I always felt like that with my mental health, but I think you have to find a piece of, if you're speaking to a fellow adult, that's their responsibility to tell you what they can and can't kind of support you with.
Boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the time, you know, it's going to be completely fine. And if not, then it's their responsibility to maybe recommend who else you could speak to, or speak to this charity or whatever, you know. So I think that's just, it's just an encouragement to speak out about things, and you know, and together, you know, back and forth, like you support me so much, and I also try to do the same, and we pray for each other and things like that. And I think it's just so great to be together rather than apart. You know?
Yeah, definitely. It goes back to that being created in the image of God, and God is part of a Trinity. There's God Father, God the Son, Jesus, and God the Holy Spirit. And if we are created in the image of God, then yes, we are 100% created to be in community. We have not. When God created Adam, he straight away created a companion for him. He didn't design life to be on its own, on our own. But just to completely agree with what you were saying about, you know, telling people what's going on, because at the beginning of my breakdown, I kept it to myself for 6-7 months. Didn't tell anybody what I was going through. A lot of pride there, I think. Didn't want people to know that I was struggling with something, because I've always been kind of very outgoing and happy-go-lucky, you know, happy, and you know, didn't want people to know I was struggling. I definitely didn't want to burden people. There was that thought as well. Didn't want to be too much for people. Didn't want to be that girl. But it's all lies from the enemy.
It's all what we say to ourselves rather than what other people say.
People would much rather support you. And I know you said even, you know, just being a child and it's up to the adults, but peer on peer as well.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
Definitely, it is up to us, as you know, to share boundaries with people and say, and silly things that I've learned over the years, like you might arrange to see someone at a certain time, but I'll see you for coffee at 10. Problem is that can then last all day, and you don't know if you've got other time to meet someone else later. You know, you've got to pick up the kids from school. What's my day going to look like? So this is a really practical thing, but has really helped me in how I've helped others, is to give people, and it sounds a bit formal, but to give people start and end times.
Yeah.
So, you know, even us today, we said, I'm free from then till then. Let's do it then. Rather than, I'll come round at lunchtime and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think being more intentional with people and, you know, saying, I'm free at 10 to 11:30. Let's meet then. It's up to you to create those boundaries. You know, and yes, I could see Katrina every week at that time, which was absolutely wonderful. But, you know, with different hats and stuff now, it might be that I see people fortnightly or check in with them more on voice note, or, you know, there's other ways you can support people. It doesn't have to be, I guess I'm at this point, I'm kind of speaking to people who are doing the support and giving them kind of guidelines for how do you pastor people? How do you help people? And it's just putting in a few of those little parameters, a few of those boundaries. It answers kind of other questions as well. I'm kind of answering the question about how do I
manage my
time? How do I find rest in God? But yeah, there are those practical things as well. Because I think I'd never want anyone to hold back from helping another because they didn't know how to do it, or they thought it was too hard. So it's just reminded me of one other thing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I once was taught about pastoral care about like a compass. So you can see that you're feeding into people, and they're your south people. They're people that you feed into, that come to you for support, and you're giving, and that is fantastic. And but you've also got your east and west people. They're the people that are kind of bit of give and take. So sometimes you'll need them, sometimes they'll need you, and you get a bit more give and take there. But it's also so important to have a north, someone that you are receiving from as well, so that you're not giving from an empty cup. Obviously, God is our north, 100%, but it's also great to find someone to be your north. And I think that would be part of my challenge in this for people that are listening, is to what am I going to say? Find a south. So if you know, a lot of people have, it's more common for people to have a north and have someone to pour into their lives. And that's great, but you can also pour into someone else. It's not you don't just have one or the other of these things. We
Yeah.
need to be flowing in all of this. You need to have your east and west mates. You need to have your north that's pouring and mentoring into you. But it's so important that you are also pouring something into a south.
Yes.
So don't disqualify yourself from that.
Yes. Yeah. And if you're the person the other way round who says, oh, I should help loads of other people, but I don't deserve that for myself, you absolutely do deserve a north as well. And and I think that is so good. And also, like what you say about having time parameters and things like that with boundaries and all of that is so healthy and so important. And that doesn't then mean you leave someone in the lurch for the rest of the time. It's also helping them to know where else they can go, you know. And it's not strictly saying that between those times you can't ever message me if you're in a crisis, or it's not that at all. Obviously kind of it's, you know, it depends on each situation. And there, you know, I always say to people, if you are in an emergency or you're really struggling or whatever, you know, I'm a message away, you know, don't hesitate to give me a call or give me a text. But also I think, and then talking about mental health, something I learned too is friends and family helped me so much, and I couldn't have done it without them. But I also knew that their role was different to the role of, say, a counsellor or a doctor, and I knew that I needed both. And you know, even using helplines or mental health resources and stuff. And I think that's also something you can do as somebody who's supporting someone, is helping them to figure out what kind of support they can access as well. As well as you praying for them, supporting them, being a friend to them, you can also help them to look for other things that are going to help them as well. So that's another way you can support people.
Yeah, and I think in the Christian world, it's sometimes there's been a bit of a frown upon needing external therapy and counselling. When you mentioned right at the beginning, God is our ultimate counsellor. Holy Spirit is counsellor. He was sent as our helper. And it's been a little bit frowned upon about, you know, why would you need external help? And I think a lot of that teaching has shifted now. In churches. But one of my favourite T-shirts, I don't have it, I do want to get one, says, oh gosh, I can't remember the actual wording, but it's something like, it's okay to have Jesus and a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because yes, he will provide and he will counsel and he will support, and you can turn to Jesus at any time, night of day. He actually has no boundaries, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's okay to seek help from counsellors and therapists as well.
Yes.
Just made me want to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that I feel like a lot of church culture is steering away from those stigmas, and the same as society in general. Because I remember, you know, and I've seen the difference having kind of experiencing need for mental health support since I was 12, so like over a 10-year span. I just realised I said that a bit wrong there, because I didn't actually seek help until I was about 14, but you know, details. But I've seen the kind of difference in stigma and things like that. Things have definitely improved, and I think it's having conversations like this just to remind people that even if someone makes you feel like that's wrong, you don't have to listen to that. That's not the truth, you know, and that's not what God says. And God has done a miracle in my life through therapy and through medication as well, and it's something that I will never shy away from speaking about, because I know that God is in it, and that is an amazing thing. And I think from what you shared a little bit about the breakdown that you had, do you feel that because of course, I've spoken about this in the podcast before as well, that I don't think that God causes bad things to happen and suffering to happen, but he will take anything, he can use anything to turn it for good. And what would you say from that time that you had, that has kind of, what has God done with that now in terms of, you know, for what you're doing now, for how you're able to speak openly with understanding about mental health and, you know, all of the things?
All of the things. Yes, definitely open my eyes to what mental health is and how it feels to have bad mental health or difficult mental health. The bottom line of my breakdown really was about losing my mother, and didn't have anything. There was nothing when I was a child, you know, no counselling, no therapy, nothing in schools. At 6, I have vivid memories of teachers literally tiptoeing past the back of my chair, because I just think no one knew what to say to me. There was no understanding, there was no help for teachers. And I guess it just wasn't very common for, parents to die. Well, I guess it still isn't at that age. So I never really, I didn't get any support with losing my mother. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s, around the same age that she was when she died, that basically, in long story short, basically was the cause of my breakdown. It was grief. And it wasn't about worrying about dying because I had got to the same age as her, but it was that feeling of not having a role model or a blueprint. I don't have any biological siblings. I don't, obviously it's me and my dad, but I didn't feel like I kind of knew who I was anymore. This identity thing that's come up loads recently. Just feel like I didn't have a role model, didn't have a blueprint, didn't know how to, adult or be a mother myself or anything really. So the crux of my breakdown and being able to receive therapy for me for the first time after 30 years after the trauma. I mean, talk about PTSD, that's where I was. It was PTSD, but that I had carried for nearly 30 years by that point. So that was my first ever encounter with therapy, and unpacked so much. So obviously really helped me with my emotional health, with my mental health. It's emotional health, isn't it? I love him or loathe him, old Prince Harry, talked about, because very similar upbringing to myself, and losing a mother as well, and he talks about, what does he talk about, like it being an injury. The trauma of it, it's like an emotional injury. I think we talk about mental health disorders, and he talks about, that's exactly what it is. So we talk about mental health disorders. Prince Harry talks about a mental health injury. It so often just stems from trauma, and injury in our emotional health. So I don't know. I feel like I've gone off tangent. You're very good at this, Kat. You're very good at asking questions and getting loads of stuff out that I hadn't even known was there.
That's
good. You're very, very good at leading these. This is wonderful, because I was so nervous not knowing if I had enough to say. And here we are, 2 hours later, feels like.
No, it's so
one.
good. And it's also God, I always pray that God will lead the conversation. And
up.
No, that is so good to hear. And actually, I wondered if we would speak a bit about trauma in this episode, because I think there's so much to unpack and learn there. And what you said about injury, I think that is so good, because I think actually, and we don't want to stay there in feeling like that we've been a victim to an injury and we can't then break free from that. But I think it's encouraging and it's important to realize that I think probably so many of us have had emotional injuries, and it's important to deal with that. But I think also it's important to deal with that in the right environment, in a safe, trusted environment. So like you in therapy, for example, and I've been the same where in therapy, I've been able to unpack trauma that I kind of didn't even realize was there, but I wouldn't have been able to do that without that guidance and that support. And that's a prayer of mine too, just for therapy and for help for people to become so much more accessible. That is a prayer of mine, because I was fortunate that I was able, or my parents were able to fund Christian counselling for me, which was privately funded. And I just pray that so much more will become available to people, but also an encouragement that there are things out there already that we can access and that can help us. And I've been leaving a mental health resource page actually in the description of the podcast, just because we have spoken about mental health a couple of times, and that is something that I'm really passionate to do, because I was always, amongst all the stigma when I went through things with my mental health, one thing that always stuck out is I would every so often see a campaign or see a poster somewhere that says, speak out about your mental health, speak out. And I think that's so important. And I think it is difficult because people realise that the NHS is stretched and, sometimes we don't get everything that we do deserve to be able to help us with our mental health, but I think that shouldn't put us off seeking help altogether. Definitely. We should use what is there, including charities, including things that that we might be able to get that aren't completely through the NHS or something, but other forms. And I think that is just really important to not give up on it and to keep exploring what might help you with your mental health. And so we've spoken about using the people around you, accessing kind of the support that you have around you with people, but also professional help is really important and often necessary. And I think it's a prayer of mine for that to become easier for people to seek, but also for us to keep seeking it. I asked before about what have you learned through what you've been through, and I suppose it was about being able to realize that we can have emotional injuries in our life and we can have freedom from them, that God is in that for us. We don't know where we would be without God in the mix with us, with all of that, and also all the things God provides through his body, which we call the church, is like God is the head and we're his body, and also through professional help, through friends and family, all those things. And then you've also been able to use all of your experiences for what you're doing now, and you've got such a heart for pastoral care as well, for reaching out to people, for supporting people both within your church work, but also just in your life every single day, and being a good neighbour to people, always on hand on the school run for other mums. And I've just seen that so evidently in your life. And I suppose there's many things that people can take from this episode today. And I think you did this actually on Sunday. Sometimes you'll say, if you don't take anything else from today's preach, what would you like people to take from today's episode?
That's really hard. I think just where we've gone down the kind of, I think you've summed it up brilliantly, Katrina. I think just the one other thing that I want to kind of bring about therapy is, I think the reason I shied away from therapy for so long was because I just thought it wasn't going to help. My mum had died. No amount of talking about it was going to bring her back. So it just seemed like a dead end thing to do. I looked at other things that people might have therapy for, and I thought, you can get over that. You can get over the other, But death, like, what's the point? Talking ain't going to bring her back, and that's what's going to fix me. So what's the point? But the realization that being able to process the grief of losing a mother has been invaluable, even down to the point that my father was able to be involved in some of my sessions. And because I was so young, my memories were muddled, and things that I had held as reality, some of those things didn't actually happen how I thought they did. And Dad was able to unpack and to tell me exactly how she died, exactly what she said just before she died, exactly who was there, exactly why I wasn't told. This was the biggie for me. I wasn't told that she was dying. And I thought that was because Dad didn't want to worry me. And I've held on to that all my life, and actually been a bit cross with him. He knows this, by the way, if you're listening, Dad. And being a bit cross with him that he didn't tell me, making up my own reason why. But actually he didn't tell me because they didn't know. The doctor had given them this false hope. So actually unpacking and getting to the bottom and the root of some of this stuff that I didn't really know what was happening, because I was a young girl. So I guess, if anything, reach out if you need help.
Yes.
Because even if you think that you know exactly what happened, how it played out, that there's no way it can get better, that's not true, because it has got better. My life has got better since speaking about stuff, and God has used it all. And it's so really corny, but the only way really has been forward since that therapy, and showing what I've done, and now leading this church and mothering of many and all of that stuff. So I guess listen to God, reach out for help others. It's still not one thing, but
no, but that's brilliant. And it doesn't mean that going through those things are easy, or that you don't have to put work in. But it's worth it. It's a lot of work. But it's so worth it. And I think this is why I made a podcast called Those Who Hope, because hope for me, that word just holds so much weight for me. You know, we say words like faith, hope, love, you know, and they've become just thrown away, you know, nice words. But hope for me is like the reason I'm alive is because even when everything felt hopeless, I held on to a tiny bit of hope. My hope in Jesus, my hope that things could get better. And that is what helped me to survive everything I was going through, and to just hold on to that hope, and then to see. And I think for both of us to kind of, not that life is perfect or anything like that, but to have seen breakthrough in our lives, we know that isn't exclusive to us. We know that everyone can have that breakthrough, and everyone can things can get better for everybody. So there is so much hope in that, and I think that is just, thank you for being here and for sharing that hope. It's just absolutely amazing. And I've only done this once before on the podcast, but I feel like it would be really good now if you'd be happy to pray for everybody who's been listening just as we close. Oh, thank you so much. That'd be great.
Yeah, love to. And love you.
I love you too.
Oh, Father God, I thank you so much for this time together, to be able to share out of a deep friendship together, feeling safe here and being able to trust Katrina with my words. And I pray that this has helped you guys that are listening. And I just pray for God's blessing on you and wisdom and clarity of thoughts if you are also battling stuff. We just pray Jesus over all of you, and to bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure. It's been amazing having you here, and we're going to go have a brie toasted wrap now, aren't we?
Lunch. Yes.
Yummy. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching this episode, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really hope that it's been a blessing to you, and my prayer is that you will know there is so much hope for you. So hold on to that hope. I do have a list of mental health resources in the description of this episode, so please do make use of this. If you think it might be something that benefits you or someone that you know, please do share it with them. Also, I'd love if you could support me as I spread the word of this podcast by subscribing, liking and commenting on YouTube, and by leaving a rating and a review on Spotify, and also engaging with me through the Q&A section. This would really help me to spread the word and to spread the hope. I'll see you next Monday for another episode. Thank you so much once again. God bless you all. Bye.